Hi, I would like to go over a few things this time. The first thing I want to go over is a loft versus a platform on the interior of an 8x20. The next thing I would like to do is look at acreage. We'll start with 1 acre and then I'll talk about 15 acres. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's see what happens. I'm going to begin with a recap of my visit to Quartzsite, and I went into the 8x20 Incredibox and just did a quick observation. I looked at how the kitchen was laid out. I also looked at things that were in there, for example, the Nature's Head toilet, the height of the ceiling. The ceiling height on that is code legal, it's 80 inches. And then they had a hot water tank, and then I noticed that the bed was sitting up 80 inches above the floor so that they could have space under it. And then I looked at how they had the mock-up. They had a ladder that climbed up to the bed, which is pretty cool. I focused again on the fact that that was a tankless water heater. I think that that's important if you want to try to do off-grid or on-grid. Doesn't matter. You need tankless. The refrigerator I thought was a little small, but like I said, I had to consider that they had to transport this from Tennessee to Arizona, so just the very fact that he had it in there I thought was highly notable. I looked at this area here was talking about the off-grid, which was cool. This is a 36 by 36 shower. I thought that was pretty cool. Again, I was paying attention to the height, which is 80 inches or 6'8", and that's the minimum that the code will allow you to have for a ceiling. Which I thought, these are inexpensive materials. I thought that was pretty noteworthy. Let's see, what else did I look at here? They didn't go with cabinetry, but I had to remember that, if you're traveling and you're trying to transport to a location, you're not going to want to really stage a whole bunch of heavy stuff. What I did like, though, is that he had the space over the bathroom, which I thought was pretty cool. He brought a microwave. He actually spent the night in this, and I thought that was pretty cool, too. I watched that as he was traveling to Quartzsite, so I paid really close attention to that. And I thought, of course, that's noteworthy. Then I think from this point, I looked a little closer. And I started focusing on the dimensions. When I took the measurements, I wanted to try to see if it matched, because when you say 8 foot, the truth of the matter is not 8 foot on the interior. It's 8 foot overall dimensions. So I wanted the pure interior dimensions, and I believe in this case it turned out to be 7 foot 10 inches, which is still decent, but just understand you're not dealing with a true 8 foot opening or 8 foot space. And then I took the measurements again here of the 6'8", which is noteworthy. But what I was really trying to do was get the overall length. And one thing I noticed, there were a lot of people in here. That was actually kind of comforting, even though they probably weren't comfortable. But I needed to get those dimensions. I came here to see this. I noticed that this thing was, it's 19 foot 9. The low part on the building is 8 foot. The highest part on the building is 10 foot. So you have a pretty nice slope on there. Now that takes me to focus on what I want to work with on this building here. Now I've talked about the Appendix AQ for the International Building Code. This is the updated version of the Appendix AQ for the California Building Code, or the California Residential Code. I'm not going to dibble too deeply into it. I've talked about it previously, but as far as the design that I wanted to come up with, I just wanted to follow the minimum ceiling height, the loft height, and I also wanted to focus on the platform height. Those are the hardcore things that I wanted to make sure that I focused on. And also I wanted to make sure that if I were to make a platform, I wanted to make sure that I wouldn't fall over, or I was not too close to the ground or too high off the ground, because if you're standing on a platform and you're the age that I am, you could fall off of this thing and you could still hurt yourself. So I kind of highlighted where I'm going to try to attempt to do these things and see how I want to make it look. If you're going to do a loft, you have to have a ladder, and I thought about a lap eye. Wasn't too impressed with that, but I figured I'd give it a try and see what happens. And then after that, let's see what else I wanted to deal with. Now, I always would believe that you need to have something on the exterior of the space other than just a flight of steps. You'll need a platform. I think you should have extra space and probably some kind of transitional porch. Other than that, there's some interior items that I'm going to focus on for this interior portion of the design. So let's check that out right quick. I'm going to focus on the minimum for a bed size, so I'm using a full-size bed as my parameter for this. I also want to focus on the refrigerator that I picked from Home Depot, and then there's an island that I've used on previous designs. I like it because it's a rolling island, and that allows you to move it around and not be constricted with your space. So I think that the island is very important. Also, I was looking at the washer dryer combo. That was a request from one of the subscribers. And then I used this previously in the design for a couch if you want to put that up on top of a platform. And I would prefer 2 chairs, but it's usable. And then also, finally, I would like to look at the IKEA sink, because it's really short, it's very narrow, shallow, doesn't take up a lot of space, and it'll work really well with what we want to do here. So I'm going to go into the loft design first. Now, personally, I'm not for ladders and lofts because I feel that you'll fall off and hurt yourself if you're not careful, but I figured that if I had one, I wanted my ladder to roll, so I created a beam so that it would roll along the roll, and it would actually be movable along a track. And so I thought about that. Then I also entertained the thought of a bed that could actually lift up and down so that you can control the height of the ceiling under you, and that was not a bad idea. I tossed that around too. The kitchen, though, I focused on it being with the island, and I also wanted to make sure that I paid attention to the washer and dryer. That would be nice. So I focused a little bit on that. If you'll look over the top of the ceiling, you'll see there's storage above there, and then when you go into the bathroom, I wanted to do a wet bathroom completely. That way you wouldn't have to be constricted by the shower. And then you can see the IKEA sink and how well it fits. By the time you put that in there in a set of shelves, it works pretty well. So that was my idea for the loft. I talked with my sis though, and I thought, what if I could roll the full-size bed up under the platform and make it like a big drawer? So I designed a bed on wheels. I figured that that would give me the space where you wouldn't have to look at the bed as a part of the overall space until you're ready to use it, and then you'll pull it out like a Murphy bed on wheels. So I'm going to show some examples of it rolled in, then I'm going to show some examples of it taken out and how it will look in a 3D space, so you guys can decide for yourselves if it's worth the idea. I kind of have an idea how to build it, so I think it's worth at least entertaining just so that you can check it out. Now I'm going to go over this a little bit more carefully. This is the space shown retracted. So you'll notice that there's a flight of steps to the right, and here's a view up on top of the loft or the platform looking down. You can see it with the bed extended. And that's, that happens usually at the end of the day. You pull it out, this is what it probably looked like. So then here's again retract it, and just for grins I'm going to do a little 3D panel of it so that you can kind of get a feel for the space. Let me follow this right quick and make sure that I don't miss anything. You can see the steps to the right. It's only like, what, 3 steps. The bottom one's kind of like a landing, and I'll probably go over that a little later on another video or something, but you can see that it being retracted, you have a nice little defined space and you're not looking at a bed. And so I know I'm wasting some time here, but whatever. You know, this is a pretty cool space, I think. You can see into the bathroom. The one thing that I thought is important on all of these designs is the usage of a barn door so that you can get privacy and not worry about that instead of a curtain or whatever. Barn doors are not that expensive, and you can put a track on it, you know, not a real big deal. And then of course the space above, that's always good for storage. ITH has that in theirs, and I think it's a great idea. It should always be used. And then, you know, a standard 2-foot sink. This is kind of skewed in the view, but just to kind of give you an idea. And then you could also see in there that there's a washer dryer combo next to the sink, and then there's an induction cooktop and the refrigerator at the height and the specs that I have from the Home Depot. So just wanted to focus on those things. And then this is of course the retractor. You can see also that there's a place for a TV, there's a place for storage, there's a place for a coffee table. Looks like a true living room. So now this is the same example with the bed extended. So you can see that it fits just close and just right. This is not, you know, you can still go up the stairs, you can still watch the television on the couch or the chair and then go and lay on the bed. And then I think that once you do that, when you wake up in the morning, you don't have to make the bed, you just roll it back up under there. There's also space up under there. And I thought that you could probably even extract the stairs, and that would be a good place to hide or conceal the off-grid batteries and things like that. I thought that wasn't a bad idea. Now in this case though, I do have to raise the window at the end up at least 24 inches for it to work. That's the only thing. Now just for fun, if you're in White Hills, Arizona, you can possibly put up to 8 lots on an acre depending upon how close you want people to be together, but they would be 50 feet apart, almost 100 feet long. I think that that's not a bad idea. I figured I would show it for knowledge's sake. However, if you're doing something like Randy is doing in Crystal, Nevada, and you're dealing with 15 acres, imagine that 1 acre and multiply it times 15, then you'll find that you have a whole heck of a lot of area to work with, and you can do a whole lot of different things like a village. So here's 1 acre on 15. You can see how it would lay out, and so it gives you kind of a different perspective. Now I promised myself that I would do a video showing a mock-up of what it would look like with a bunch of Incrediboxes on 15 acres. So this is kind of my little quickie rendition of that. Now I looked at water towers, I looked at a place to store stuff, I looked at, oh, you needed a place for extra storage. I thought about a store. I thought about, oh, you needed a place to run power, you know. So I just wanted to kind of give myself kind of a quick idea of if I were to get an Incredibox, I would have, you know, and I had lots that were 60 feet wide, I would drop them in there like that and just kind of get a feel for it. You can see those little storages. I took containers and put them under sheds, and so that would give me quickie places for storage. And then in the middle of the whole thing, you wanted kind of a general store and a place to store your power. So I put that in the middle and not on the end, so you wouldn't have to travel so far to get to those things. So those are just kind of quickie ideas that I figured if I did a quick mock-up, how would it feel? And so now that I've done this, I feel a little complete. I can move on to the next thing. Well, my next promise to myself is to design an ADA version of the Incredibox so that I can fulfill a promise that I made for Bill. Then after that, I'm going to focus back on ADUs for a moment. And if you like this, please give me a thumbs up. I appreciate it. And thank you for taking the time to watch. This is Ace and the Doggy Inn, and this is Maytoga.